It wouldn't be your Benjamins anymore. It would be your Teddy
Well, I was
Roosevelts.
gonna say instead of calling it a Benjamin or it's all about the Benjamins, it would be it's all about the Roosevelts.
Yeah, it's all about the Roosevelts. Yeah, there you go.
It would make that song meaningless for future generations. They'd be like, "Well, what on earth is all about the Benjamins? What is
Yeah,
that?" You know, I'm sure
yeah,
that's
because they
whatever.
Roosevelts now. Those are the most common dollars, right? I mean, or we could just come up with like a new like dollar, like the $6 bill.
Who's on the $2 bill?
It's
Adams, John Adams.
yeah, I don't know. The $3 is Bill Clinton.
No, the $3 bill is Fred Durst.
Is it? We should come up with a new like dollar bill, like the $12 bill or something like random, you know?
You got change
The
for a 12?
$17 bill.
it's so it's so inconvenient for everybody. Do you have change for a $17 bill? Well, what do you want it in? A 1 5, a 10,
Yeah,
a one, a $2 bill? I got a $2 bill
yeah.
here.
The
Wow,
the
that's
the
odd.
$13.50 bill. $13.50. And then it's Andrew Jackson and it's just like him and it's all Rough Riders on the bottom. He's all giving you a middle finger in the middle of it.
And you have,
Yeah.
so the whole time they
With his
have to
little
like
specs, right? His little specs.
they're trying to put the money in the drawer, and it's bigger. It's got to be bigger than the traditional bill, so it's like
Oh yeah,
inconvenient.
thicker. Yeah,
Yeah,
thicker too.
and
Yeah.
so they have to like fight to get it into the drawers or like get new drawers that will accommodate this new
Or
bill.
like yeah, open like a new register just to put the Theodores in, the Roosevelt. It's all like rectangle, or it's not even a rectangle, it's like a square money. So it's
It's
all
so
new
obnoxious.
yeah.
Well, they
The
did
only
that with the I would argue that they did that with the Sacagawea dollar. Remember, they made like a whole new currency so that they could put
yeah.
Sacagawea's ass on a coin. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
if
that's
we
right.
were to make a square Roosevelt that equals $13.50, like I don't think people would be able to argue with us. Like like they wouldn't be able to argue the absurdity of it
Yeah.
because somebody
Minimum
at some
wage
point.
has a bill, right? The minimum wage, there's an actual bill for
There
it,
you go. That's perfect
right?
because then, yeah, that'll be the trade off. We'll be like, okay, listen, we'll raise, we're not doing $15 because that's retarded. You don't deserve $15, but we'll go 13.50. And
Yeah,
then,
$13.50.
and how we're going to do it is we're going to issue them on these new, this new legal tender. It's it's like half the size. Well, it's like what like 2/3 the size of the traditional dollar bill,
Yeah.
but
And it's square,
but
not
square,
rectangle, it's
right?
square.
And then it's worth $13.50. So for every hour, they'll just hand you one of these Roosevelts, and then people
Yeah.
will start saying, "Oh, time to go hit the old salt mine, make a couple
Yeah.
Roosevelts."
Yeah.
It'll be a thing.
Yeah. You would literally be stacking Roosevelts.
Yeah.
You'd be stacking Roosevelts, dog.
And then, do you
Yeah.
think that would affect like it would be inconvenient? I think for stripping, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you go into a strip joint, and surely there's occasional, there's like maybe the chick that you want to tip her well, you tip her a 10, right? That might happen. It's happened in the past, I'm sure. And
Yeah, sure.
some of the high class institutes that are institutions of scantily clad women, yeah,
Hmm.
you might throw a $10 bill into the G string, but you don't want to put a 20 in because that's a little too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you put a Roosevelt in, right?
Throw Rose. Yeah. You could make it rain Roosevelts.
Yeah.
That's actually more eloquent sounding than raining Benjamins. You rain do no, you'd have to do the rain a different method because raining you do the like that,
It would
So
get
there'd
caught
have to
on
be
your
like
fingers. Yeah.
square money. So maybe you could fold it and like throw it like ninja stars better. Because if it's square, it'd be easy to make a ninja star.
The
But
origami.
yeah,
Yeah. Do some kind
yeah,
of like origami
yeah.
with the square paper.
I
Yeah.
I want to have a bill where it's like a really offensive to somebody, like it pisses them off when they have to use it or something. Like they reach in their pocket and they look at the bill and it's got like somebody that they hate, and they're just like every time, like every time they look at that square bill, like Trump. Could you imagine if Trump was on like a bill, like how pissed off they'd be so mad every time they had to reach into their pocket for that bill.
So
It'd be
here's,
awesome.
to be fair, and to look at this objectively, that's how I would feel if they put Harriet Tubman on the 20, which is kind of how
Oh
we
yeah.
started this conversation. People
Yeah, I
in the
guess
chat
that's
aren't privy
true.
to that. So that we're kind of like, we're going to, well, I mean, we're not going to be, because frankly, I don't think they're going to switch, take Jackson off the 20, but, or put Harriet Tubman, because I think that's honestly whoever floated that idea. Can you imagine how like bereft of original ideas they were?
Yeah.
Like the conversation came up and nobody had prepared for it.
It was like somebody watched that movie Harriet and they
Yeah.
were like, "You know what we should do? We should put Harriet Tubman on a dollar bill or something." Like after they watched the movie, they're all crying. They've got like tears. This movie deserves an Academy. And then the other like feminist is like, "You know what we should do? We should petition."
To
Right?
put
Like,
Harriet Tubman, and
yeah,
like, so here's the
like
thing
come
though.
on. And then there's the guy back there that's like, "Come on,
Right.
come
Yeah.
on."
Well, see, the way I was imagining it was somebody brought to my attention this whole thing with Andrew Jackson owning slaves and him being on the $20, as if he was the only one on any currency
Yeah.
that had slaves. They all did, with the exception of, I think, Lincoln, maybe. I know he wasn't crazy about slavery, but he also hated black people.
What about you, Ulysses S. Grant? Did he have slaves, I bet?
I
He's on the
don't
50.
I think so, because as I recall, like even the two generals in charge of the Confederacy and the Union, they were both like, listen, if it meant like totally avoiding this, I would just give in to whatever, because frankly, like I just don't want to do
Yeah.
this. Like I don't want to
So,
do
all
this
right.
civil war.
You know, I have this girlfriend now.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
her name is Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah, so she's in the chat. So she's I think she's gonna start watching our show. So I thought when you do the shout outs, make sure to mention, you know.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I should be writing all this down, all these people.
Yeah,
But
be a
but
good call.
let me finish, right? Let me finish my joke, because it's so rare that I have a joke, right? That I think I can
Okay, all
deliver. Normally
All right.
I have to read it. But so the way I saw it was they were like, hey, there's this talk of this racist Andrew Jackson being on the 20. I think we need to address it. Who do we put on this? Who do we put on the $20 bill in place of Andrew Jackson? And not a single person had ever considered this concept, right? Because no one cares. Nobody looks at money and goes, this is racist. This money is disgusting because it's got a slave owner on it. Nobody has ever thought
Yeah, I don't
that.
want this money. How
Oh,
dare you
oh,
give me a
oh.
bill? Some racist icon on it.
This has lost all value to me because it's got a racist on it.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper that actually means nothing, frankly.
Yeah, really.
It's not even based on gold standard anymore. It's on this fiat thing, which is stupid. And that's a whole nother thing that I'd like to talk about in a moment. But like nobody had ever thought about this prior to. So they're all sitting around Congress. I assume it's Congress that's having this discussion. And they're like, well, who would we put on the 20 instead? And nobody has a single good idea. And then the one crotchety well, there's a lot of them, but like one crotchety black lady in Congress stands up and she says, I think we should put Rosa Parks on it. But nobody listens because it's a crotchety black lady. And they're like, oh, that reminds me, black ladies, let's just do, who's the something slavery, it's like, it's a white guy at this point. And he's like, fucking,
What's that lady's name again?
Harriet Tubman, right?
Yeah.
She did something for the blacks. And then like, this is a time before wokeness, right? So nobody cares when you say blacks instead of African Americans. He's like, she did something for the blacks, right? And then everyone's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And nobody knows who Harriet Tubman is. I mean, people could probably tell, like, oh, she was involved in the Underground Railroad, right? But then nobody knows what the Underground Railroad is. So it's just a very, like, complex situation where, like, fuck it. That's a name that we associate with positive advancement for African Americans, right? So let's just move forward with that. It's somebody says it on CNN and then it spreads like the wildfire. And I guarantee you, if you ask just anybody on the street, just go up to any old body on the street and say, hey, tell me about Harriet Tubman, they won't be able to any degree of accuracy beyond what I just said. Oh,
But I mean, so in all fairness, not many people know many things. I talked about this with my dad today. Like he was all confused. Like why? Like we were talking about. I know this is a segue too. We were talking about movies recently and how they're rebooting everything, and like Disney has like literally no original titles anymore. Aside from Pixar, all of their movies are like reboots and
yeah.
like things that have prior content, right? Like Marvel all have like reference work, right? So it's all just like crap coming out. And my dad was like, why do they keep doing that? And we've been watching Fargo, right? Like I'm all finished up with it, but he's catching up. And he's all, it's so cerebral and it's such a smart show. And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, why can't there be movies like this? And I go, well, there is. I go, but that's not what the common denominator wants. They don't want cerebral. When when we go to pitch movies, the goal is to be able to pitch it to like a third grader. And that's no joke. Like that's how they go. Look, you don't want to use like these complicated words in your titles. You got to make it simple so the populace can understand. And that like says a lot about society, like how intelligent they are, and like really like what is the level of intelligence like of the common denominator. Let's be honest. At least in America, is there some statistic that anybody knows? I guarantee you it's not college level. Am I ranting?
No, I'm trying to think of what's that quote by George Carlin where he says your average person is dumber than and I don't want to ruin the quote because it's a funny quote. I'll come up with it while we're talking, and I'll jump in and I'll say it.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
But that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about. People, when they talk about, I actually had a friend who no longer talks to me anymore because I was shitting on Black Lives Matter back before shitting on Black Lives Matter was cool, and like he got so mad. And I think actually based on the topic of Charlottesville, it was Charlottesville, which we'll talk about tonight, I'm sure. And he at one point, he said, so why are you so invested in fiscal conservatism? And I said, well, I just don't think it does our future generations, my children, my future grandchildren, any good to just dump all this extra debt on them, right? We're at $20 trillion, 20 some, probably 20, closer to 25. It's been a long time since I've looked at it because I've been avoiding it because it gives me anxiety. We're dumping like tens of trillions of dollars on our great grandchildren, right? That they're going to ultimately have to pay. And really, when people use that excuse, well, we're dumping it on our grandchildren or our great grandchildren. That's not true, because half of our debt that we have now is owed to the American people. If you look up where the debt comes from, and when we talk about these trillions of dollars that are we're in the deficit, we are actually pulling from a lot of our socialistic programs, which kind of goes to make the argument for me that socialist programs are stupid. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all those programs that you have been paying into on your income tax and all these other taxes, they're not going to be there for you. Just FYI.
Isn't it going to be completely worthless? Like Social Security is just going to be worthless to us. Like you and I specifically are not going to benefit at all from Social Security.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah, we'll never be able to get into it. And now you're starting to see people who are applying for it. You see, like, even in the last several years, it used to be you retired at 60, and then it was 62, and I think we're up to 65 now. Like, you have to, like, every year it gets, or every few years, I'm sorry, it gets a little bit further. And then their argument for that is, oh, well, life expectancy is higher, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it's just the money's not there. The government dipped their hands into that pot and took that money and put it into other shit that they didn't need to put it into. And so, like...
toilet seats and
TV. Well, it's just because they spoiled themselves for so long that now they're like, well, that's just how much we need, when in reality, they're just... as somebody who used to work in logistics in the government, I can tell you that every quarter they were like, hey, we have this much money left. We need you to spend it because otherwise they're not going to give us that money next quarter. And at the end of the fiscal year, it was the same thing, except it was a bigger pot. They'd say, hey, here, we have this much money. I know you know, like I had $45,000 spending limit every month when I was at Fort Knox. Yeah. And I spend it on all sorts of crazy shit because I was the brigade supply sergeant. And so anything that they wanted, they got. And it was some crazy stuff. Like at some points they were like, well, listen, we're coming up on the end of the year. You spend the most money. And I had been audited countless times and never got gigged because my books were clean. They always went after me because I had the biggest books. I had the biggest budget. And so they would always go after me looking to see if they could catch something. And they never did. They always found like my accounting was flawless and, you know, humble brag or whatever. But then I ended up
like
becoming
Ben Affleck in The Accountant. Right?
Yeah. I used to sit there and like rub my leg with a stick like I was autistic.
Remember, does that? It's so weird. It's all rub his leg with a stick.
Yeah. And like that sound it makes when it's grinding against the shin.
And like playing like death metal in the background while he's doing it.
Yeah, well, that's that sensory stuff. You got to have that. Whatever. Anyways,
is that for autism, right? Autistic people or whatever.
Yeah, they have to have like. That's why like people who are going into like an autistic. I don't want to call it an autistic rage. Like it's something that is whatever. I mean, autistic people are highly functioning in most cases, and especially like people with Asperger's and all that. They can be highly functioning.
Asperger's?
Yeah, that's a higher form or a form of.
That's not what it's called. It's not called Asperger's.
Yeah.
Like ASS, like burgers,
no.
Like hamburgers.
No, there's an E and a P and all sorts of other stuff. So no,
so
it's
Asperger's. Who came up with that word? Like, didn't anybody think like that doesn't sound like a good word? You know,
his name
it's like
was
when they
John
Lake
Asp.
Titty. Do you think the person that named Lake Titicaca was like giggling when he was when they were in the meeting? They're just all, what should we call this lake that we found over in the corner? And the dude's just like, hee hee hee.
Let's call it Lake Booby Butt Cheeks. Yeah. Like, no, that's not gonna work. Lake Titicaca, we'll go with that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh yeah, Tyron. And I'm gonna Drakenkaiser in the chat said 27.9 trillion is the current deficit.
Yeah, the deficit.
But yeah, I said
deficit.
So my argument was, well, I don't want to dump that on my great grandkids, and without even considering myself in that equation, because I know I'm not going to get Social Security, whatever. But I said I don't want to put that on them, and it's only going to get bigger. It's exponentially gotten bigger since Bush took office. And this 20-year wars that we've been in. And so that was my argument. And he said, why are you worried about money? It's not even real. And I said, and this guy's an ultra liberal. And I said, well, that certainly explains your guys' lack of concern over fiscal responsibility and why you're just like throwing money at everything. There's a certain degree of realism to the money. It's not like there, because it creates, you know, then you've got the economy to factor in, inflation, all this bullshit. So there is some degree of reality to the money and importance of not becoming Venezuela by just, you know, rapid printing money or whatever, to the point where it's worth less than World of Warcraft money, right?
You go online and you like have people farm you money.
Yeah, and then people are just
Chinaman.
It's so ridiculous. And so my argument to him was, well, then if money is not real and we're not worried about money meaning anything and being backed up by anything and having any kind, and we can just freely like increase the welfare programs that we have because the money doesn't have any backing or any purpose. Why do we tax? Why taxes? And he didn't have an answer for that. Because I'm like, let's be real. If it doesn't matter, why not just print more money, let people keep the money that they have in their pocket, and then, you know, just print out more money when you need it for these socialist programs.
Give money to everybody. Just keep giving it away. If it's worthless.
Yeah. And he didn't have an answer for that.
The man that probably doesn't understand finances entirely, like in general. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know who you're talking about, but my theory is he probably doesn't understand finances like at all.
No, well, he was a very smart guy. I'm sure he still is a smart guy. I haven't talked to him in 4 years, probably, but well, 3 years, I guess. But very smart guy, very intelligent man, captain in the army, but he was in signal. So nowhere in his degree plan, in his background, his degree plan was he was a West Pointer who went. I think his studies were in like communications. So he very intelligent guy, just no grasp on responsibility,
Yeah,
and fiscal
God,
responsibility whatsoever. And he was just very like so brainwashed by this whole social justice
ugh.
Hispanic guy, Puerto Rican guy. And he was just so worried about, and if you've ever been to Puerto Rico, if you've ever looked at Puerto Rico, it's a dump. And it's just a fact. The cities are run down. We have forgotten about Puerto Rico as a country. It's not one of our states, but it's something that I guess we should probably be responsible for. But
We call it
unfortunately,
U.S. territory, right? U.S.
yeah, it's
territory.
a U.S. territory, and that's
Quote,
why people who are born in Puerto Rico are Americans by default, the same way that you would, which is interesting as well, because you would think that some of these people coming over from Cuba or from Mexico, the wet foot, dry foot argument, you'd think they'd go to like Puerto Rico instead. They could be a little sneakier and then have their kid there and then be like, oh, well, I was born here. But we've neglected it entirely. And that's not to say, oh, America, you fucked up. It's also a lot on the ground, like the government officials. Remember back when that hurricane hit and all that water was delivered on pallets and the MREs and all that food and all that stuff was delivered. And the people on the ground, they were wearing shirts like, I can't breathe, I'm dying, save me or whatever. And they were doing publicity stunts. But like all the water was behind them in the warehouse. And then they fucking found out that all these warehouses, they just forgot about them. They just left all this water and shit out. So there's a lot of government corruption that's going on in Puerto Rico, but at the same time, we've there's no denying that we've to some degree neglected our responsibility as a owner, our ownership of Puerto Rico, and for that reason,
Puerto? You say
yeah,
Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Puerto.
But yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, it's a disaster. And
I should like to be as suave as those Puerto Ricans, though.
yeah, they are.
Those Puerto Ricans, they're pretty suave, man. They know how to like tango or
Yeah,
salsa or
they get more ass than a
woo the
donkey
lady.
farmer.
Good one.
Hey, I was working on that one all week. I actually wrote it down. But yeah, so he was Puerto Rican, and so he comes from that background. And that was my defense of like the racist shit that I was about to say was I had to be like, oh, America, we kind of neglected it. No. But he came from that background where like, it's very much like what you remember from like the bad scenes of Scarface, where he's like in the shower and the chainsaw's going to town on the dude.
Oh yeah. I kill for fun, man. Okay? I kill for fun.
Yeah, that's
Right?
just that's life in Puerto Rico. And yeah. He came from
He's
that.
like, that's what I do. That's what I do, man.
He came from
Right?
that and thought he needed to push that agenda of like we need to take care
Wait,
of every
are you
fucking
telling me
buddy.
that Scarface was Puerto Rican?
No, he was Cuban.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I
But
haven't
that's
seen it.
Miami. And
I remember he does that thing at the end with the cocaine where he like rubs his face. That's like I always say my favorite parts in movies are never what you'd expect. When he like puts his face in the cocaine
Yeah.
and just like it's like a big
you know
a
they
big old pile of smoke.
he
That's
used
a great way to go out. I mean, he went out in a blaze of like coked out glory. Just like just stuck his face in some cocaine and then broke out what was it, an AK-47 and then just
No, it was an AR-15
Say
or
hello.
it was an M16.
No, he said, say hello. How does he do it?
Say hello to my little friend. That guy. Like when
Yeah.
I like when George Lopez does the impression. Like every movie that he's ever done, he has to do an impression of Scarface, and it's not very good. It's
Yeah.
just I'm just leveling. Remember, I told you the other day I didn't realize that George Lopez was a comedian or a funny actor
Yeah.
until like Balls of Fury or whatever, and I said, why is he doing a comedy? Like he's like Like kind of like when with Joe Pesci when he went to Home Alone, and you're like, why is he in a comedy? It was like new and interesting and kind of like crazy. And Robert De Niro and Meet the Parents, you're like, oh wow, he's like really going out of his range for this one. That's what I saw when I saw Balls of Fury. I'm like, wow, George Lopez is really stepping out there and trying to change up his image, I guess. And my wife was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, he's normally like in serious movies, like he's normally the serious guy. And she's like, no, he's always the comedian. He's always the comic relief. I said, no, I'm talking about George Lopez, not Christopher Walken, right? Yeah, I said George Lopez.
He's ever funny.
He's not. I said, so I went back. I'm like, no, he's never he's never been funny. He's never done a funny role. And if he has, like, I totally missed it because I've never found George Lopez funny. Like, not once has he said something where I'm like, that's a funny, good one. Or like chuckled to myself or
Remember,
anything.
he's the mayor on Reno 911.
No, I didn't know that.
He's not even funny on that. It's just annoying. Yeah, you're just like, all right, George Lopez. Okay, cool.
Does he just do the traditional like?
It's like he's the interchangeable with Mind of Mencia. Like neither of them are funny, and they just are like Mexican, right? Carlos Mencia. Remember him? Carlos Mencia. Like
same
as much
thing.
As
same thing with Carlos Mencia.
Like not funny at all. But then like Dave Chappelle takes off, and they're all, we'll put Carlos Mencia in his slot. Remember that? And it was like, what is this crap that like just took over Dave Chappelle's show? Like,
yeah,
like not all scaled close to that. You know?
If you watch, and here's my argument for why I thought Carlos Mencia was the same thing, because I watched his first stand-up special, and if you like his first one on Comedy Central, and I think I tuned into it. Like this is back when I was like real big into stand-up comedy, and I tuned into it. And it was like a couple minutes into it, and the dude's already going, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, is this some kind of political campaign? Like, I was young, and I was like, is this the news? What am I watching here? Because he was talking, and I'm like, this is not funny. But maybe maybe it's the Daily Show. Maybe it's just like a little bit more mature than I'm whatever. And I couldn't get into it. And at the end of it, I don't know if you ever saw it, and maybe this will jog your memory. He's got like a picture he's got like a big stand-up cutout of a house behind him during the stand-up special. And at the very end of it, he doesn't even do a joke. And that's like your big flourish. That's your moment to like leave an impression, right? This dude says something, and I'm trying my best to remember it. He goes something along the lines of like, and I'm going to leave you with this. Just remember. And then he like walks off stage, and that was his big ending. And I was like, okay, so this wasn't, and then all of a sudden it does the with the blue screen and shit where it's like Comedy Central presents Carlos Mencia. And I'm like, what? I was like, that was not a funny, like when did stand-up start? When did it go from like stand-up comedy to a stand-up like slam poetry session? Because I'm not interested in what I just saw.
I feel like stand-ups are just like fail nowadays, and that was like, you know, obviously that's pretty terrible, like what you just explained. And I've seen other comedians on like Comedy Central specials, and they're terrible, especially now that there's like everything is offensive to people. Like you watch Comedy Central stand-ups now, and you're like, where are the jokes? Like what is this? And then like, you know, like guys like us, we grew up with like Chappelle and like Norm Macdonald that are like hilarious. Like Norm Macdonald, like I can't even watch him like tell a joke without laughing through the entire joke. Like he doesn't even get to the punchline, and you're still laughing, and you're going, that's what the joke was. There's the zinger, right? And you're still same with Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle's hilarious, but then you have these like nobodies show up, and they're like politically correct. Like there's no humor, because as we know, there are 3 types of humor, and one of them, the main one, is at somebody's expense. Like it's either your expense or it's somebody else's. Self-deprecation or somebody else. That's humor. You know, we're gonna laugh at the stupidity of others. It's superiority. Don't get me ranting about comedy and why it's important to be superior to people in comedy, because I will rant about it. You know.
You know, it's funny, like you maybe I can see that being true, but me coming on this program and like holding up the, you know, I am a flag waver for comedy, like I am I am the shining example of what comedy is, and you have to listen to me because I know comedy. That couldn't be further from the truth. But I will say you hold a little bit more water on that front than I do. And I think with that,
I appreciate that.
we I guess I should probably do the shout outs.
Yeah, we're right on the nose today.
Yeah, that was that was a good segue, and we didn't even really prepare that duologue. We just continued talking about.
No, like we're really prepared today at all. Like,
no,
let's be real, dog.
We should probably warn them that we did zero preparation for this, but we'll do that after I do the shout outs and we do the shot. So, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us in the chat and being an active participant in the chat. To the following people: Mike in Manitoba, who made sure to be first in the chat today and like announce himself present first and foremost, so that I would say his name first, is what I assume.
What a guy.
Jurassic Weeb, I love God, which I love saying because it's true. It's like I'm saying a statement and I'm welcoming someone to the chat. Jake Hoob, who could forget? Justin Wilker, Let's Fish Already. JC Braun, Tyrant. Now I'm like I said, I'm gonna mess this up. Tyrant Drakenkaiser. I'm doing pretty good, actually. I think
it's like a boss name in a video game.
Yeah, I feel like he's the final boss at the mall or whatever.
Yeah.
Critter Me Timbers, Megabit, Jadogi, and of course, Starin.
Yeah, Starin. Starin.
The whole
Don't
joke
forget,
behind that.
Jake Hoop mentioned that we should also not forget to address the FBI coon in the chat.
Oh yeah, and welcome to the chat,
FBI.
FBI. Yep. Yeah. And CIA, NSA, ATF.
He's all.
Who else?
He's all.
Thanks, guys.
I think he knows we're really listening. Do you think they know? They really know.
Every once in a while, you just got to look off screen and pretend like you hear them. Did you hear that? Did you hear that clicking?
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. So, Al the Edge, dude, we have a Fed, and the shot, Tom. I'm doubling back to make sure and to all those who are listening who can't talk in the chat, welcome to you guys as well. We love you just the same.
I love the Tyrant Drakenkaiser. Correctamundo. I love that line. That's one of my favorite lines. I always say my favorite. Correctum. I like to say perfectamundo too. I do that one.
What is the Big Kahuna? Is that Big Kahuna Burger? Would you mind if I had it? No, it's all yours. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. Can I have a sip of your tasty beverage?
He drinks the whole thing. So it's just slurping ice.
Yeah, I was gonna say from the beginning, it almost sounds like he's already drank it. Like they added the sound effects later, and they're like, we don't really know what it sounds like when you drink from a full cup, but we want people to know that he's not just sitting there with his lips on a straw. So they make the slurping at the end of the cup sound like right when he gets it off the bat. So like whoever the soundstage guys are, like there are some parts in that, like there's some parts in every movie that if you watch and you listen for this is soundstage guys, right? The ones that make the sounds after the
they're
fact.
They're called Foley artists.
There you
go. Foley.
Those guys, sometimes you'll catch something.
Foley guys, they're artists. Like if you ever get a chance to watch any of the extras on Men in Black, the Foley artists on Men in Black are like, they're G's, dude. Like these are guys that like, you're going, that's how they made that sound. And it's not something you ever would have thought like, or wondered like, I wonder what that sound is. What they did, like the lightsaber, like isn't the lightsaber like a big like wire that somebody like brushes metal against, right? Like it's a combination of that. And then like the T-Rex on Jurassic Park is like a combination of like a bunch of different creatures, right? That's what Foley artists figure out, man. They have to like sit there and figure out what sound. You ever do that? Like sit in your house and like think of like a sound and all of a sudden you're like, you know what that sound like? Or like you make a sound effect with your mouth and you're just like, you ever sit at home making sound effects?
I'm not an aspiring filmmaker.
Making weird sounds.
I'm not an aspiring entertainer or anything, so I don't think about all that stuff that goes into it. I do watch the videos though occasionally that come up on Facebook, where it's like, here's some neat thing that we filmed or whatever that maybe you knew about but probably you didn't, because it's some like small aspect of life that you just don't care about. And one of them, because it's like the unsung heroes of every day or what, they're trying to find who's the unsung hero of 2021 or whatever. And so they just make everybody a hero. Fuck it. The people who pulp paper, you guys are heroes. We're going to talk. Now we're going to like talk you guys up. Just like, everybody in the medical field is a hero. Not the people who are necessarily like in the ER or in the hospital treating, or in the ICU are the heroes who are legitimately saving lives. Even the I don't know, the janitors in a hospital, you guys are the heroes because you're out there making the lives easier for all these medical professionals. So let's just make everybody the cafeteria workers at schools, you guys are the heroes. But so I watched those.
Lady is the unsung hero.
Yeah,
she's like the most like disgruntled worker in all of like work. And she is the unsung hero. She's the one that deserves all the praise because she sits behind that cafeteria counter and she serves your kid.
She dribbles slop onto your kid's little like teeny
with the
tiny
hairnet. She's got to wear a hairnet.
she hands your kids she dribbles the slop of cream corn and mashed potatoes on your kid's plate with an ice cream scooper, and on their tray that's way too hot because it just came out of the dishwasher and it's still like steaming and dripping wet because they don't dry them. They don't leave them out to dry. They just, hey, this class period's over, on to the next one. Now your kid's got a hot tray and 3rd-degree burns on their hands. That's the unsung hero of modern society.
Those are the heroes that we should be praising. They should be giving them awards.
You get the National SOAR Award because you're out here every day with your diabetes and your feet that are basically falling off, and your coat that runs all the way down to your ankles, like midway down your calf or whatever, and like nothing on underneath it for some reason, and your hairnet and your glasses and your big mole that's right here that you can't avoid looking at, so we're always looking at it because we're cross-eyed when we're talking to you.
Remember Budweiser used to do that? We salute you, Mr.
Real American heroes. That one?
Was like, that was so good. Man, they really know how to market to us guys.
We
I
salute
still do the
you.
I've been trying to bring that back for decades.
Well, yeah, every week. You guys don't know this, but every week when V answers the call to the show, as if it's some kind of like, you know what, V, you're the unsung hero. You've answered the call every time. But every time he answers, he goes, "Wuzzaaaaaaaaaaaaa."
You guy who's trying to bring back Wuzzaaaaaaaaaaaaa.
Real American guy who's bringing back Wuzzaaaaaaaaaaa. We salute you, guy who's bringing back Wuzzaaaaaaaaa. You get up every morning and you pick up your cordless phone, call your friend just to say, "Wuzzaaaaaaaaaaa." Your mouth stays open for 30 seconds at a time while you continue to belt out noises. You still
like
quote the Budweiser frogs occasionally.
Those are the best ones when they try to like do it forever. Like, Wuzzaaaaaaaaaaa. I can't even do it without laughing.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
What are you talking about?
Remember the white guy one? Remember when they did it with the white guys and it was like they're all wearing
what's happening?
Yeah, they're like wearing the sweater vest and the sweater tied around and like the tennis racket, and he's like, "What is going on?"
Grandmas, where the grandmas call each other. She's all, "What are you doing today?" That's all like Ebonic too. She's all, "Shit." What? Just watching this show, just like the original. What you up to? Shit. Just watching this show. Was that? Why is that so funny? It's still funny to me. It's hilarious. I think.
That might be beyond like some of our listenership, right? Maybe like
Yeah,
young
like too
young
old.
folks like Megabit, they don't get that joke. This is all
Yeah,
lost on Megabit, unfortunately. Which
or
he's
like
like our target audience,
who's out Sharon, who's out in Taiwan and she's never seen a Budweiser
right?
commercial.
It's like sake, except it tastes like shit. And then they have like a good marketing team. That's the best way I can describe Budweiser commercials. I don't know how they do sake commercials. Is that even a?
Sake is Japanese.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know all the different. I'm trying not to be racist because
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I actually don't know either. I'm sure they have some beer in Taiwan or alcohol in Taiwan that's exclusive. I'm sure it's a wine, a rice wine too. So it's probably like sake, I imagine. I don't know. I actually was there for like 3 months a few years ago, but I didn't drink when I was there, so
you never
can't
partook.
really say. No, I did drink. Now that I think about it, I did
So
drink.
what were
But
you
you know me,
drinking?
I stick to the White Russian
Hmm.
and rum and Coke. What are you drinking today, by the way? Did you do your shot
I didn't
already?
yet. I did not. What are we doing it to?
What? Let's toast to not getting our stimulus check still,
Oh
because
yeah.
I think that like we're never getting it. I'm of the mind that we're just never getting it at all. Like we're a month in, dude. Like how long did it take? Like let's take a look at like logic here. How long did it take for the Donald to cave on the last $600 one? It was like 2 weeks. He just caved and was like, "All right, I've got a few days left in office. Let's get these guys something, right?" Because my theory is he knew we weren't going to get anything once the Dems took over.
Well, so maybe I don't know. I hadn't looked at it that way because I recall it wasn't him that slowed that down. It was Republicans in the Senate that shut it down. They wanted to give 600, which is really funny to me because this is how that went down, right? The Dems said 1400, right? And Donald said, "No, that's ridiculous. Give them
Yeah,
2000." And
yeah, yeah.
then Senate Republicans said, "No, let's give them 600." And that was it. That was that. They were like, "Well, it's 600 now." And so we got 600 from Senate Republicans, which was a real like it was a real what's the word I'm looking for? That was a real stab in the back from like like
Yeah.
some
Pause.
I saw somebody say something on Twitter. They said the government has a lot of nerve asking for taxes after the way they behaved this year. Like that's that's the way I see it with the Senate Republicans giving out $600 and then like after all this like oh the Democrats want you to fucking die and then they're like oh the Republicans want you to fucking die and then the Democrats are like well let's give them $1,400. Trump says let's give them $2,000 and then the Senate Republicans are like no 600. Like that was a pretty clear showing of your hand at that point. Like, no, we want you dead. And so I thought that was really funny that we barely got $600 when Republicans had control of the Senate. Now that it's a split Senate with the Democrat majority with Kamala Harris and with a majority in the House and a Democrat president, we can't even get anything. We haven't gotten any money whatsoever. So that leads me to believe that even the $600 that we got, which was like a real kick in the pants, right? Like a real kick us while we're down moment. Even that was like exceeding the generosity of anyone in our government, right? And now that the Democrats control it, now they're like, oh shit. Remember how the Joker says, "I'm like a dog chasing a car. When I catch it, I just don't know what to do." That's how the
Right.
Democrats are anytime they're in power. They're like, well, now that I've got the power, I just don't know what to do anymore. Like I don't know what to do first or at all for that matter, for whatever. So it's like now they're in this awesome position and they can't even get anything done. But I think a lot of that actually has to do with the budget reconciliation because in order to actually pass this money, in order for them to give us any stimulus money whatsoever without Republican support, which they don't have in the Senate, they have to do it as a budget reconciliation, which is even funnier to me because they're talking about doing it, which would take away money from all these socialist programs that are already tapped out and are already dry, like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all that bullshit, all these welfare programs. Well, these aren't even welfare programs, frankly. These are things that you paid into, so you should get something back from it. So they're having to pull from that in order to pay us, which is why all of a sudden they had to change it from like, fuck it, everyone gets $2,000 is the first thing out the door as long as you give us the Senate and you elect Biden. Yeah. Now all of a sudden it's, well, $2,000 checks will go out the door if you give us the Senate. Okay. Then all of a sudden they get the Senate and they realize that they still can't do it. They're like, well, 1,400 we can do 1,400, but only if you're making less than $75,000, which for frankly, $75,000 salary is pretty good in like for most of the country, right? For flyover country, we do all right with 75,000. Like my salary alone is about 50,000. And so we were just under 100,000 when both of us were working, and or we were a dual income household. $75,000 goes a long way in flyover country. Unfortunately, the people who are bitching the loudest about it and who need it the most live in the inner city, where a couple, any amount of Roosevelts isn't going to go a long way. So yeah, they, $75,000. That's probably still pretty close to the poverty line in New York City, in LA.
Yeah, in LA. Sure,
Chicago. Yeah. These are like cities where that won't go very far.
Yeah,
especially
and when you consider the cost of living in those areas as well, it's like dude, it's anywhere. Nothing. It's literally nothing. Yeah, sad, dude. So I'm kind of, it's like the one thing I'm upset about, like all this like whatever Biden, communist takeover. I'm like, whatever. I shrug my shoulders and go, well, it's not really affecting me right now, but if the communists show up at my door, then it's when it affects me. So I go, what do I do? And then I go, well, hopefully I'll get some money out of this at least. And that still hasn't happened. So I'm like, I'm not going to complain because nothing is really affecting me, but it is. Like as of right now, I haven't gotten this promised stimulus money, and that's pretty annoying. So I have a right. It grinds my gears, my dude.
Hey, so somebody in the chat, I know you know him as well as I do. Spider-Man77, aka the Red Pill here, from, if you'll check your Pokemon Go, he's consistently delivering gifts. Like this dude, he gives gifts every day. Any day that I open the gift and I send him one back, I get one back from him. And I always wondered if it was the same person because I often get gifts from the same place from both. But yeah, he said, V, open your gifts. Just so you know. So that's Chris Rose. Yeah. Also, welcome to the chat, Buzz Busby. Frankly, so as far as the stimulus check goes, I could do with or without it. We fortunately have been we've been very blessed throughout this pandemic, where neither one of us needed to work. And once the school year started, my wife actually stopped working so that she could stay home with the kids and do school with them because we were doing all virtual. And we were able to collect my money and my retirement and disability. I always talk about my salary, my income when it's just a retirement and disability, and then with my money that I get from
Australian. That dude's an Australian fan.
Yeah,
he's an Aussie.
Yeah, if you would open your gifts, you would know that.
What the heck? Dude, we have like fans all over the world, dude.
Yeah,
can you believe this?
You would have known that, V, if you would have opened your gifts. So, yeah.
Aussie fans from Estonia.
Yeah.
What is? Like, geez, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, I opened it. Jeez.
Yeah. Open mine too while you're there, by the way, because send me some. I need the Stardust. Yeah. I actually just traded some shit to my son earlier today, and I ran out of Stardust. But yeah, we had and then my housing allowance from school, right? So I had that coming in. I mean, we've had all this money, and then with her taking out her 401k because, frankly, we didn't want, going into a Biden presidency, right? We didn't want this. We knew that the stock market was going to crash, so pull the 401k. And then we had all this money, and was able to pay off all of our bad debt. And then with taxes that we just got, or that we're getting back now, like we have so much money in savings right now, more than we've ever had, with no debt too. And
Right. Yeah,
like,
same here. I'm all caught up, dude. We had a good we talked about this today. Like, let's be honest, like COVID-19 was actually decent for guys like us. I didn't get sick, and I got a bunch of money from the government for it. And I'm still going, where's my money? I'm still doing that. And then still getting money and going, man, these guys, they should give me more money. But I mean, I had the best year in a long time last year. Like, I was doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good from all this,
Yeah, we're definitely taking advantage of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then not having to go anywhere. And like, you have no excuse, like, or that's your excuse, right? Like when people are like, well, can you come down here and can you go to school? Okay, so that's another one. Going to school, I have to go for resident credit. I have to physically go to the school, which is like 2 hours away. But because I refused to wear a mask, and I told them, I explained that whole situation to them, they were like, well, you could just do it on Zoom. And I said, okay, so that saves me 4 hours of driving once, every week, that I don't have to drive all the way down to Lexington for that. So that's more money in my pocket.
I'm sorry. I'm paying attention to like an extent. This guy, he's a Kiwi. That means he's from New Zealand. He's like the Flight of the Conchords, dude. Like Murray.
Maybe he's
you
dead.
Can't go around stealing cushions.
What if you can't go out after dark? What if you get murdered? Imagine that. Getting murdered.
What if you get murdered? Yeah. I'm a fan of Kiwis. I wonder if he likes Flight of the Conchords. We're fans.
Remember we
obviously
talked to that lady at the rally? Not the one in Washington, of course.
And, yeah, not on the 6th of January. Not that date, all right?
She was like,
we were nowhere specific on that day.
She was, yeah, we were, I don't remember where we were at, but we were definitely somewhere that was not there. But yeah, that lady, she was from New Zealand, and she was she's a permanent resident now, but she was like there supporting Trump. And,
that's right.
And the first thing we both wanted to ask her was, so does everybody in New Zealand like Flight of the Conchords then? And she was like, no, but I do now. I used to hate them, but like she came around. And,
yeah, she did. Came around.
What if you got murdered? Imagine that. Getting murdered.
You can't go around stealing cushions.
Or
I love Murray. Reese Darby. The guy's great.
All right. Band meeting. Jermaine.
Present. Yeah, present.
Present. Brett. Why do I have to say I'm present? I'm present. You know me. You can see I'm here. Well, we all do it. Mary, present. See? Even I do it. All right. Band meeting. So anyways, I don't remember where I was going. Oh, but that $2,000, I don't even need it. Or I'm sorry, $1,400. I don't need it. That's just gun money. That's money I'm going to go spend on some equipment to add to my guns or a new gun. I don't know. I might buy my Desert Eagle because that's $1,400.
Oh yeah, Desert Eagle. That's a good choice.
It might be time to get that Desert Eagle, the chrome one.
5.0.
gold-plated chrome Desert Eagle.
You saw the Boondock Saints, the second one?
Yeah, of course.
He goes, ding dong, motherfucker. Or no, what's the first one that he does? He goes, who ordered the whoop-ass feed?
Oh, that dude from Triple Nine.
That's my favorite line, the whoop-ass fajitas. Come on, that's great. That's gold, man.
That dude, he's always like the dirtbag, right? He's always awesome. The dirtbag Hispanic guy. He was on Triple Nine as well, and he played the dirtbag Hispanic cop. Like, that's just all he plays. I want to see him. I'd love to see him with some range. In an action flick. Because he's
Pacific Rim. He's in Pacific Rim. He's also in Westworld. He's really good in Westworld. Although he does play a Mexican in Westworld too. But I don't know his name.
One.
He's an actor that I don't know his name, but I love him in Boondock Saints too. All Saints Day.
Yeah, he's like a real goofball in that movie.
All Saints Day. He goes, ding dong, motherfucker, ding dong. And he walks in.
I'll give you this. He's better than the dude from the first one.
Rocco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's better
like
than
the
him.
Scene slams on the table and he accidentally shoots the cat.
No, I mean, I like that movie. I like everything about that movie, but
that's my favorite scene.
He goes, all right,
No.
what was his no, what is it? He's like, what's his name? They're talking about the cat. He's like, what's his name? She's like,
They don't even know.
Scruffy. And he's like, oh, what color was he then?
They couldn't even think of it for a while though. They had to like, yeah, that's a great scene. He accidentally shoots the cat. It's like such a random moment. Yeah.
Tells everyone a fuck ass.
No, the best is when he tells the joke. Remember the mop boss? He's all, have a Coke.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Jeremy
because
in that movie. Ron Jeremy is in it.
oh yeah, he's beaten off in the spank, the what do you call those things? The porno theater,
Oh yeah. Where you watch the girl dance and you whack it.
the
I
squeege
don't know.
moppers. The
I don't
squeege-
know. I don't even know that. Is that like an
Peep
anachronistic thing?
show.
Like
Yeah, it's a peep show.
peep show.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
he's the one, he's like sitting there all close up on this, like you see his face all sweaty, and he's like, don't you talk to me like that, you dirty girl. He's
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
like I was trying to recreate it as much as possible without actually masturbating, but he's all like,
He's all yeah.
that dude's in jail now, remember? Ron
Really?
Jeremy? Yeah, he's in jail for, well, he may have bailed out, but he's actually like facing all these rape charges. Like
Really?
some dude who's like known for fucking a bunch of women on camera
Yeah.
is in
Thousands of
trouble.
women. Thousands of women.
He's in trouble now for banging tons of women. Like who
Wow.
who sexually assaults somebody when they're getting that much tail? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would
Well,
be my argument as a
in
lawyer.
spite of his well endowment, he's kind of weird looking now.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
when you're weird looking in an industry where everybody's attractive and has big dongs, it's kind of like,
It is hard to
you know,
get laid,
it's
I
old
bet.
now too. You know.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
I don't know though. That would be my argument as the lawyer. I guess depending on the timeline of like when these rapes happened, I'd be like, he's in porn. He's like well known for porn. He's been in porn since before you were born, Your Honor.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got like women throwing themselves. I mean, that's the thing too. Is like women like still throw themselves at him because he's just kind of like this legend,
Did
right?
you see? You know what? That's a good point. Do you remember a show called The Surreal Life back in the day?
Vaguely, I don't know anything about
Okay,
it.
Surreal Life was like real world MTV. Only it was with old like what do they call them? Like fading stars, I guess. Like one of them was with Vanilla Ice, and one had like MC Hammer. Well, there was one with Ron Jeremy. It was Ron Jeremy, and it was Tammy Faye Baker, the freaking televangelist, right? In the same show. And then they had like this Playboy Playmate, you know, this like no name Playboy Playmate, you know, and she's strutting around the house. And literally every interaction she had with Ron Jeremy, she was trying to pants him because she wanted to see his dick. That was the whole, like every interaction with the Playboy Playmate and Ron Jeremy. And it was like, from what I saw on the show, now mind you, they could have edited a bunch of it, I'm sure. But from what I saw, he didn't appreciate it. He was like offended. Like he was the one that was like, whoa, dude, like, you know, like, geez.
Have some
like,
respect.
Like, could you imagine like being known for having a big dong and like God forbid all the beautiful women in the world want to see your dong, right? Like that's what he had to live with his whole life after doing thousands of porn. At some point, he like people recognize, oh, it's Ron Jeremy, and they're like, I want to see your dick.
Pull it out.
I mean, that's yeah.
Wear sweatpants next time.
Like Boogie Nights. Remember when Mark Wahlberg has to whack off for that dude?
Oh yeah, and he's got that big old wang at the end.
Yeah, it was off-putting, wasn't it? It was like, whoa.
Yeah, like because that was not
like
the,
a baby arm.
That was not something that you saw in movies at that time.
No.
You know, like except for Sleepaway Camp, right? Was the movie where like it was the tranny at the end. Spoiler alert. Where she turns out she's a he. She's a tranny or a hermaphrodite or whatever, and like at the very end, she's got like
hermaphrodite. That's when they have both parts, right?
Yeah, I don't know if she has both. I mean, she's got the boobs, but then she's also got the dick. So,
Yeah.
which is kind of like also sadly normal now. Like it's hard to just hop on the internet anymore on Twitter and not see like some cartoon that somebody's drawn with a tranny in it or like a dude with boobs. You know.
Yeah.
Weird stuff. It's a weird world we live in right now. But yeah, he's He's in some troubles right now for that. What do you think his dick looks like? Do you think it's all nasty and like
Well, I mean,
cruddy
I've
up with
seen.
disease? Do you think it's like in real life? Before the
Like
fluffer?
recently, I haven't seen it.
That's
You
what
know,
I
I'm a
want to know.
fan. I'm a fan of the of the
Of his craft.
you know, what do they call them? Human reproductive documentaries. Human reproduction. Yeah, documentaries.
He's
I mean, he's got a big schlong, dude. It's like 13 inches, I think.
really.
Yeah, it's big,
I've
dude.
never seen his wiener.
It's on par with Marky Mark in Boogie Nights, which isn't his real dong, by the way.
No, I know it's a sleeve.
He admitted that in an interview.
Yeah, I know it's a sleeve. All right, we'll see you later, Chris. But I figured that Marky Mark's probably wasn't that big. I assume it's probably like
No.
pretty big still, but not that big. I think that
No. What a cool thing to do, though, like admit that that's not your real dog.
Yeah. Well, that's who Marky Mark is. Like,
yeah.
You remember Marky Mark as like, oh, he was this huge racist, right? And this is a great segue because he was like this huge racist, and growing up, all these stories about Marky Mark just going after, like, beating up black people for no other reason than the fact that they were black. And like calling people all sorts of words or whatever, and all manner of racial slurs. And then all of a sudden he kind of did, like, he was gone for a little while, right? Like, we didn't see Marky Mark for a bit, and then he came back, and he was all of a sudden like this new and improved Marky Mark, where just a sweet guy, like a nice guy, like what happened with Robert Downey Jr. I mean, back in the day when he was palling around with Mel Gibson, he was a drug abuser, right?
Yeah, reprobate.
Yeah, troublemaker, just general all around troublemaker. And he came, he went away and he came back, and all of a sudden he's this good dude, like real sweet guy, like. You look at some of these redemption stories that happen with these guys, and a lot of them involve racism back in the day. And now all of a sudden they have to like put on this front of like, I'm not a racist, but in reality they're probably still racist as hell. But he's like, now you would look at Marky Mark, you hear all of his interviews now. He's like all about repentance and making things better, being a better person, love, and all this shit. And I think that's pretty cool about Marky Mark. If you read some of his all of his like behind the scenes shit, you're like, well, that's a good dude. Say hi to your mother for me.
Yeah, I love that bit. Say hi to your mother for me. Yeah, Andy Samberg.
Hey, Andy, say hello to your mother. Say hi to your mother for me.
He's like, what does that mean? Say hi to your mother for me. And then he like does it. He's like, okay, say hi to your mother for me. Yeah.
That's a pretty good Marky Mark impression, too.
It really is.
It is.
Say hi to your mother for me. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Marky Mark, he's come a long way, and I think that's part of his redemption is like him being like just open and out front about everything, and he's just all about having fun now and exercising. Yeah. So what are we cheersing to Marky Mark's massive wiener?
Yeah, his not so massive wiener.
Well, I still think it's pretty big. I'm still holding out hope that Marky Mark has a big dong, and I'm willing to cheers to that. So, cheers to that.
Yeah. There was somebody that had to have a prosthetic made for his dick. They're like, you know what your job is? You got to go measure his actual dick and then make a mold that'll fit around his dick so that it looks like he has a bigger dick. This is a thing that somebody in the film, department, or what do you call it? I guess it would be makeup, costume and makeup. Yeah. They're like, prosthetic dong, dude. That's your job, man.
But let's be honest.
After making that dick, and he just like felt accomplished. He's like, man, he tells his wife, you couldn't even imagine the dick that I made today. You wouldn't even believe it. It's going to be a book with Burt Reynolds.
You say wife while talking about somebody in makeup in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would bet, I'd bet you a Roosevelt right now that there is not a single makeup artist in Hollywood, male makeup artist in Hollywood, who is married to a woman and having consistent sexual relations with her.
I don't know if I'd take that bet. That's a pretty good. The odds are against me on that one.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to put up an hour's minimum wage for that.
Yeah, Roosevelt. Yeah.
But okay, yeah. So racism, is that what we're talking about today? We're talking about
Are we
racism.
talking about racism? Is that where
Yeah.
we're going?
Yeah, because we phoned it in today, and we were just going to try to BS our way through it. But we have something that we do need to talk
an
about.
hour, dude. That's an hour.
There's some people in the chat that I'm sure are excited to actually hear some content about something.
Yeah.
Other than us doing our impressions of people from New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And say hi to your mother for me.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Say hi to your mother for me.
You know, I want... Yeah, say hi to your mother for... Now I'm going to have to sit here and practice my Marky Mark impressions. Or you do the one from The Happening when he's just like... confused, looking around the screen. You know what I'm talking about? The one.
Yeah,
like,
I do.
To whom?
I don't.
Like,
I've never seen the movie, but I know that face. That's
You've
a face.
seen the meme. Yeah. He goes. They're like, well, they gave it to him or gave it to the guy, and then he goes, to whom? Is what he says in the movie. To whom?
Yeah.
And everyone made fun of him about it for the longest time. That movie was terrible, like objectively terrible. So, you know, don't rush out to see
Gambler.
it.
He was in that The Gambler. That was really good. That was a good one.
Oh, when he was the
And
professor.
Shooter. He was good in Shooter, right? Remember that?
Yeah. And then they
With
replaced
Mike
him.
Tyson?
You know, they replaced him for the show.
Yeah, it was some other Muldoon.
It's Ryan
Yeah.
Felipe.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, I like Ryan Felipe. He's decent.
But you know how it is, like when you're committed to, well, my shooter, you know, like not my president, you know, not my shooter. Even though I like Ryan Felipe, I'm not willing to replace him. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to accept him as a replacement for Marky Mark, right?
I wonder if people felt that way about The Bourne when Jeremy Renner took over.
I don't know.
They were just
I
like,
think
not
so.
my Bourne.
Yeah, I think they did because I never was interested in the Bourne white supremacy or any of those movies. Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, and Bourne Ultimatum.
Just say it on the new Jay and Silent Bob movie when he's all. Remember when Matt Damon he does that speech and then he goes Bourne Identity. You could say it's my Bourne Identity. And he looks at the camera.
Oh, when he's sitting in the church, yeah, because he's pretending to be Loki or Bartleby, whichever one he's supposed to be.
It's Bartleby.
I love how Kevin Smith just does. He just like totally takes them down because they're like these big hotshot Hollywood actors, and Kevin Smith's a nobody essentially in film making. Like he's a somebody to the cult class or to the cult crowd, right? Yeah. But to like big Hollywood, when he tried, he fucking fell flat on his face. I mean, there's no denying that Jersey Girl was a flop. There's no denying that his horror series,
Jersey Girl.
At a certain point, he gave up on, and this is where I'm going to shit on Kevin Smith. I love Kevin Smith's movies, but I'm going to shit on Kevin Smith.
Yeah, as a person,
like I'm not even gonna like as a person, pretty shitty person. Cries about like, didn't he just like recently cry about some gay thing that was on TV? Like he's very like into this social justice shit. When like 4 years ago he was like, I don't know the first thing about any of this, but what I do know about is movies, and that's what I'm gonna do. Because somebody was yelling at him for not yelling about Trump or whatever. He's like, you've got this huge platform, man. You should be out there talking about how Trump blah 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 blah. And he denied. He's like, no, that's not my thing. I'm not into that. But then this election, he and Jason Mewes did an ad for fucking Biden and Harris or whatever, which like I lost a great deal of respect for him at that point. But at the same time, I like immediately thought about his original what he talked about in Evening with Kevin Smith like decades ago. He talked about how I
enjoyed that whole thing. That Evening with Kevin Smith, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I have the DVD or whatever. That's I mean I've had it since fucking 2002 or whatever. But yeah, it's like a stand-up comedy special. But you also get to learn about like the movies that were good that he did, because that was pre his horror trilogy that fucking flopped. Granted, I really like his horror movies, with the exception of Yoga Hoosiers, because he realized that his horror movies weren't for like anybody really, except for me and like the select few people that liked Red State and Tusk. I really like those movies. I thought they were really cool. They're not good by any stretch. Like objectively, they are not good movies, but I like them. But yeah, I mean,
I like Dogma. I think Dogma was really good. I like the Jay and Silent Bob movies, obviously,
so
but
no,
I
no, no,
didn't
no,
care. And you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I didn't care for Clerks.
no one
I know
does.
that's what Jay and Silent
No,
Bob came from, but I didn't care for Clerks 1 and 2, and I didn't care for Chasing Amy. Mallrats was like the original. Like everybody loved
yeah, yeah,
Mallrats
yeah.
because it was like coming of age back in the day, you know.
Hmm.
But I mean,
No,
other than that, I
the
can't get behind most of his movies.
the Ask Universe movies, right? That's a different story. That's where he excels, right? In the Jay and Silent Bob movies, because that's what they've become. Uh, Clerks, Chasing Amy, Dogma. Or, I'm sorry, Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, and then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and then
They all take place in the same world or whatever.
right, and then Clerks 2, and then Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Those movies all took place in that's part of his esque universe, and I really like those movies because they're goofy, they're fun, whatever. He wasn't really trying to send a message with any of them. He was like, a couple of buddies who fucking do this and this, and yeah, there
Yeah.
might be some underlying shit that like you can deal with and some cutesy stuff or whatever, but it's not for that. It's for you to sit down, laugh, and goof off, and get drunk or get high with your buddies and watch and have a good time. But then he did like this horror trilogy that's just not objectively good. I enjoy it though, with the exception of Yoga Hoosiers, which was just a joke. I think he did it just because
What is the movie with Daniel Radcliffe where it's called
Swiss Army Man. Yeah, yeah.
Swiss Army Man. Did you see that one?
No, I haven't watched it yet. I know what
Where
it's
he's like,
about. You have
I've
something to
never
say about
seen
it?
it, but I've heard good things, and it looks interesting. I'll say that, but I've never seen it. I'm off put by Daniel Radcliffe because of
Harry
Guns
Potter.
Akimbo. Yeah, that
Oh,
was just like, well, Harry Potter. I mean, yeah, I mean everybody watched Harry Potter, but I mean, come on, it was just fucking, you know,
Buzz has only seen Dogma. I recommend, dude, and that's the thing about Dogma's the original Jay and Silent Bob movie to me
yeah,
because it's like they're in the whole movie. It's
yeah,
not
it's
like
kind of about them,
Mallrats
really.
where
Yeah,
they do like cameos here and there, or not cameos, but they don't do like just like little bits here and there where they're just like small
yeah,
characters. They're
they're
like in the
side.
full movie.
Yeah,
And then Chasing Amy, they're in it so briefly, like that's barely a Jay and Silent Bob movie. But to
yeah.
me, I remember somebody when Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back came out, they said to me, "Are we supposed to know who Jay and Silent Bob are?" And I was like, "Well, probably not," because that was like their first big marketed movie. Before that, it was all like you kind of like knew you had to know about Kevin Smith to know about the movies because they weren't super blown up on TV or in the theaters or anything. It's not like anybody was really pushing them. Um, but yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was the first one where they were like, "Oh, let's actually promote this movie," and then it
Yeah.
actually did halfway decent for, especially certainly for a Kevin Smith movie. But yeah, that dude, he, I don't even remember why I was going to attack him or shit on him, but oh yeah, because of all that, how he all of a sudden took this like political stance of,
Hmm.
hey, I'm gonna my characters, Jay and Silent Bob, noted idiots, noted fucking morons, like total degenerates, goofballs, not smart individuals, right? Just known buffoons. I'm going to use those characters, who just so happen to be the most known characters of my entire universe that I've created. But I'm
Yeah.
going to use them for that purpose because they're the most known. But I'm going to have them be the ones who promote or who do this campaign thing, right? Who endorse a president. And in the evening with Kevin Smith, he specifically talked about how this one lesbian comes up and asks him the question, why is it that you feel comfortable saying all any lesbian needs is a deep dickin'? Like, why, how dare you say such a thing? All any lesbian needs is a good deep dickin'. How dare you say that? And he said, well, I feel like I made that pretty clear by having Banky Edwards, the idiot character of that movie, say that line. So when all of a sudden I saw this ad, this political endorsement for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, done by Jay and Silent Bob, I immediately thought of that, his own line. Like I had the idiot character present this anti, there was no such thing as LGBT back at the time, but it was like this gay, anti-gay sentiment. And that way you could be like, oh, well, that's not what the actual writer, director, the message of the movie, that's not what that is. It's the idiot character saying it. So when he came out saying, we're voting on the 11th, we're voting for fucking, or the 3rd, I'm sorry. We're voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and whatever. And we're real excited about it. And then even Jay says something stupid too. He's like, this is the first time Silent Bob and I are on separate sides of the aisle. He wants Biden and I'm voting for Harris. You know, and so it's like a real goofball idiot thing to say, but at the same time it's promoting this endorsement for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which kind of like further validates that point. And I thought, not only is he a sellout and a bit of a hack at this point, he's also like a hypocrite, because this is what he said, 20 years ago, that you got to pay attention to this sort of thing, because that's the message that they're trying to drive home, is like, oh, you got to pay attention to who said it, because that's blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Kevin Smith, man.
I'm going to push back. I'm going to play the devil's advocate.
Please do.
And now let's tell the truth here. I was the one that was telling. Remember when I watched the reboot? Remember when I watched Jay and Silent Bob reboot?
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, dude, it's riddled with liberal crap and this. I said it was good. Like, I laughed and I even shed a tear at the end. It was moving, but there's liberal shit just peppered through the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember, like, I told you that, right? So let's be clear where my stance was on, like, what I thought Kevin Smith's political leanings were before we even discovered any of that.
And however, I think I argued with you at that point. I think I told you no, because I said maybe, but maybe because, but I thought that was the message he was trying to convey, was that the reboots are, because this is before the election.
Yeah.
Because I said reboots are, he even explicitly states in the movie that reboots are designed to cater to these fucking social justice-y cases. So I thought, I even went to bat for the guy, because I was like, no, he was, and I told that story about how years ago somebody was like, you need to be out here, you've got this fucking platform, and you're totally not talking about Donald Trump and all this. And he's like, listen, I don't know anything about politics. What I do know about is making goofy movies or whatever. So that's where I'm going to stay.
Here's my argument in favor of Kevin Smith. Now, we don't know Kevin Smith personally, and we can't know his like motive, right? We can't know. We just assume based on the knowledge that we have and see in the media, right? And so in that sense, we don't know really what he's thinking. However, looking at everything that we just like analyzed right now, even the stuff about like his political leanings, it could be that he's doing it ironically. It could even be that like that movie, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, is like a whole ironic thing about making fun of like the female reboot and like all of that. Like it could be that, and
that was my argument. Remember? That's what I told you.
That was your argument. And even with this Joe Biden and Kamala Harris thing, like maybe he knew that. Maybe that was his argument. Is he thought, okay, they want me to play their game because if I don't, they won't let me make movies in Hollywood, which is true. Like, you get canceled. Like, we know from Gina Carano, man. If you don't play ball with these mofos in Hollywood, they just like cancel you. Like, that's it. You're done. You won't work in this town, right? That's the phrase. You'll never work in this town again, right? Yeah, could you imagine being like this director that like that's how you make your money, and then you go, well, if you don't support somebody somewhere says you better get in our corner and play ball, right? And so what does he do? He goes, okay, I'll do it, but I'll do it ironically. Instead of him personally going, I, Kevin Smith, support blah, 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 he goes, let's do it silly and make it Jay and Silent Bob. And then they'll know. Somebody will know. Somebody who's been a fan of me for decades will know. they'll go, I remember what he said. I remember what he said. And they'll either think he's being a hypocrite or they'll go, he's staying true to his word.
And you know what?
But
I feel a little guilty now. You've guilted me, V.
And here's my argument. Like, I don't like his politics. And based on what I saw, I go, oh, if this is his politics, then I don't agree with it. However, I'm a big fan of Kevin Smith as a person because he succeeded in what I want to do with my life.
That's true.
He just decided to make movies and did it with his friends. That's what he did. What do we always say? He went to Hollywood and was like, I want to make this movie, but I want all my friends in it. And they were like, you can't just come to Hollywood and make movies with your friends. And then he went and did that. That's literally what he did. And that's what I want to do. So I have like admiration. I mean, the guy dropped out of college and was just like, screw it. I'm going to do this myself. Right. Yeah. And like, I'm a firm believer that if you want to do something, like, just go do it. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, if you need the schooling and, documentation.
You can't just be a doctor. Oh, I'm
yeah,
just be a
doctor. But I mean, if it doesn't require formal education, like in the art world, in the world of art, like, just go do it, man. Like, you don't need education. You just go do it. Quentin Tarantino, perfect example. Never went to school or any sort of film, anything. He just worked at a video store his entire, high school and up, and was just like, I want to make movies, and watched a ton of them and then did. Like, that's what he did. Of course, got to have somebody, like, somewhere there's got to be people with money. Like, that's the catch, right? Like, you can't make movies without financial backers. So if there are any financial backers out there in the audience, that drop me a DM, because I have a ton of ideas and movies and TV shows that we can make, and we stand to make. There's my shilling. I'm early shilling.
Well, then I'm not going to let you have a chance to shill later. No, I'm going to take it away from you.
We haven't even got into the topic. We're like an hour and a half.
Took your shill time away. We'll have to do it next week, and then this week will just be about cancel culture.
Oh yeah.
So you have me feeling a little guilty about turning coat, because I'll turn coat on somebody.
I know. You're a Kevin Smith fan.
I know, and you made me feel like a real dick. You made me feel like a real. Because he made
corner before.
Because I was the one, because we did a flip flop, because you were like, no, I'm against his liberal bullshit that he put in the movie. I was like, no, listen, and I like made the case for, like, I went to bat for him, and I never go to bat for anyone in Hollywood, because I know that like there's a really good chance that dude has fucked a kid. And so I don't go to bat for people in Hollywood.
Yeah, of course.
But I did for Kevin Smith, and I regretted it after the whole campaign. But now you've got me like, man, did I like, you didn't want me at my $600. You don't get me at my $1,400. Like, you have me there, right?
Yeah.
So I feel a little guilty.
Matt Stone. I mean, it's like you take Matt Stone and Trey Parker, for example, like. They're these two like autonomous, like Comedy Central would not exist without South Park right now. Like South Park is like the longest run, like they're neck and neck with the Simpsons right now. You know what I mean? Like they're up there, and like that show will never end. As long as those dudes exist, they've said they'll keep making shows for everybody every 6 days. Every 6 days, right? They'll make a show. And like those guys have a platform and they don't give a shit, dude. They say whatever. They don't care. Nobody's going to cancel them because they've canceled everybody already, right? By like offending everybody. Oh, yeah. Nobody's safe from South Park, right? Yeah. They're like equal opportunity offenders. They'll just offend everybody. No one is safe.
Do you ever wonder about so you've got we're talking about cancel culture now. That's the topic of discussion.
Okay, yeah.
So and people in Hollywood just like fucking whatever. You ever think like, so, and I'm going to add to your point, right? Because we talked about how you have to have a certain opinion in order to function in Hollywood. And if you don't, you might get canceled, right? Like we see that with Gina Carino. We see it with James Woods. We saw it with Ralph Macchio.
Kevin Sorbo.
They were kind of already out, but still, like now they're not going to get any kind of parts because the only difference is James Woods, he's got years and years. Like he's put in his time. So
he's got shots.
They can look the other way. But that makes me wonder about what you said about South Park and like them canceling other people. Now you've got Family Guy. Obviously James Woods wasn't being, there was no interest in somebody's political leanings prior to 2015.
Of course.
It just didn't come up. And if it did, it was, oh, you're a conservative. Okay. I'm a liberal. Okay. The end of discussion. I mean, like, well, let's talk about it a little bit. Okay. Oh, cool. We're still friends. Hug it out. And they walked their separate ways.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Then Trump came along, right? And all of a sudden, everyone, they demonized him, first and foremost, because he threatened a good thing, right? And all of a sudden, like, things were just, oh, Obama, we're getting everything we want. We're able to traffic children. We're able to do all this stuff. We're able to get away with all this stuff. We need Hillary to continue this legacy of foreign wars and being able to cash in on that. All the illegal shit that was going on in Congress, because nobody cared what was going on in Congress until all of a sudden it's been made, everyone got interested in politics. And now they're like, you can't fucking fart in a House chamber without somebody calling for treason. And so now all these people in Congress, they're in big trouble because they make these insider trading deals, which are not illegal in Congress, by the way. They're allowed to do insider trading based on information that they get. Now people are aware of that, and they don't want that anymore. So now he ruined a good thing that could have continued had Hillary been elected. So all of a sudden, they demonized Donald Trump because, and this is what we're going to talk about next week, I guess, but because he was stopping the flow of illegal immigrants who were making it cheaper for big major CEOs and major businesses to pick their fruits and to do all this like labor that nobody wanted to do for Roosevelt wages. They wanted to keep flooding in these immigrants, these illegals, and then they wanted to also continue this refugee crisis, which was going on under Obama. They wanted to keep funneling in all these refugees because, frankly, it got rid of white people, right? By bringing in all these refugees, all of a sudden the refugee population flourished. Like, we had way more refugees, like, just having babies because they were funded to have babies. They were given these, we have buildings here in, not necessarily in my community, but like not too far away from me. You know, I live in a fancy community, right? No refugees allowed. But we have these areas where refugees live in these kind of like sardine can type apartment complexes, and they're given the EBT cards, and they're just like funded by taxpayer welfare programs. And by funneling those people in, you're kind of pushing the white people out. And by, you get a lot of illegals coming in, all of a sudden they're, and I don't want to say it like we're talking about a puppy mill or whatever, but you get like this interbreeding from one race to another. You're essentially, and by making it like, what do you see when you go onto a porn website? All of a sudden it says ebony, Latina, Asian. You see all these different categories of like, hey, these should be appealing to you, right? I want you guys, you porn viewers, to watch all these different categories of different races of people so that you'll find them attractive. All of a sudden we're funneling in refugees, we're opening the gates to illegal immigration, we're kind of demonizing white people. You'll mix breed with these other races, and within a generation or two we'll eradicate white people entirely, or at least turn them into the minority. So that's kind of like one thing that he stopped. He said no more refugees, no more illegal immigration, and people fucking freaked out, so they demonized the guy. Now, all of a sudden, if you're not anti-Trump, you're a Nazi. And the last thing anybody wanted to be equated with was Nazis, just because that's a scary word, right?
Yeah, the connotation.
Yeah, and so then you get this virtue signaling of, well, I'm so not like Trump, like I'm willing to suck a guy's dick to prove that I'm not like Trump, right? Like I'm so pro-LGBT, which granted Trump actually came into the administration, the first president to ever be pro-LGBT before he actually went in. I'm so pro-LGBT, I'll fuck a guy, you know, and that became like this whole virtue signaling movement, where if you didn't distance yourself far away from Trump, you lost family, you lost friends, you lost your job. And that's what's happened with this cancel culture is when you're in Hollywood and you're not willing to denounce Donald Trump or anyone who's related to, well, now it's the GOP in general, which frankly most of us Trump supporters have moved away from the GOP anyways. We just became Trump supporters who voted for Republicans sometimes. You end up like you have to be anti-GOP or anti-Republican or anti anything that resembles Trump in any way. Otherwise, we're going to make your character gay. Ask Chris Pratt. Because all of a sudden his character, Star-Lord, who he's like notorious for, he's been in 4 movies as Star-Lord in this major Marvel Cinematic Universe, very popular movies. All of a sudden they made him gay in the comic, or at least bisexual. Like he's in a hot tub and a gay guy comes in and whatever. I don't know what happens in the hot tub. Awful. But yeah, it's like they made him into a bisexual character. Same thing with Lando Calrissian. They made him into, oh, he's a pansexual. Now everyone has to, like, if you're not, but that's the thing with Chris Pratt is, oh, you want to be a part of a religious community that is anti-LGBT and you don't want to come out and denounce Donald Trump publicly, or you don't want to come out and endorse Joe Biden with the rest of the Avengers, we're going to make your character gay. And since Disney and Hollywood are so entwined, like they're one and the same almost at this point, and so closely related that Hollywood, the entity, says, make this character gay or kill him off. Okay, Disney does it because Disney now owns Marvel. This is the problem with monopolies and why we need to prevent that sort of thing. But nobody said no, because guess who determines whether or not something is a monopoly? The government does. And who's in charge of the government?
Theodore back. Good old Theodore and his trust busters, dude.
Yeah.
They show up, right, and just trust bust the crap out of people.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need a good old Theodore back in office, just mean, with his mustache and his monocle and his getting shot and during his speech and continuing speaking.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
When he did that?
I do.
That's one hell of a dude right there.
And then Reagan did it too, because remember he was giving a speech on gun rights and somebody shot him, and then he came out that once they patched him up or whatever and he got released from the hospital, he came back out and finished the speech or whatever in support of gun rights. So pretty fascinating stuff. Speaking of gun rights, I was actually just reading about HR 127, House Resolution, while we're on the topic of government and shit and all the crazy fucked up shit that they're doing.
Right.
You had me at just government in general and why it sucks and why we need to abolish it. I was reading House Resolution 127. It was actually proposed by a Democrat out of Texas, of all places. And it's the gun registration and licensing bill. I don't know what it's actually called, but that's what it is it's a gun registration and licensing effort to do that, an effort to register every single gun in the United States and the sale of every gun, and require a license for everybody to own a gun. And it's not just a license. This will probably piss off a lot of people. It's almost like we're turning into Canada at this point. So I'm picking on our Canadian fans here, because what they want to do with this bill, if you haven't looked at it yet, I read through it last night, so I'm going to give you the gist of it. They want to make it so that in order to buy a gun, you have to get a license from the Attorney General. Now, this license is you have to go through a psychological exam, or you have to go through a background check. You have to go through a psychological exam. You have to take a class that's 24 hours. So basically 3 full days of class that you have to sit through. And all these have to be from approved people. You can't just go to like any old so-and-so on the side. It's going to be like whoever's the best buds with the Attorney General at the time is going to get approved to do this. People are going to lose their licenses for allowing certain people to get guns or get their licenses, or trying to push people through for bribery and shit. People are just going to lose their licenses and their ability to do this sort of shit just because the Attorney General wants to give it to somebody who they're buddy with. And then you also have to get insurance on your gun, which is like I don't want to say a number and be wrong. You have to get insurance on a gun in case something happens or somebody's hurt with it. or you kill somebody with it, it's going to pay for the family or whatever. Like all this stupidness. And then you also have to, and then the psychological exam, none of us are going to pass it, because if you have any kind of chronic mental illness, you don't qualify. If you have any kind of dependency to any kind of narcotic, or any kind of drug at all that's at a federal level considered illegal, so that's weed.
Well, my what you call it, veterans stuff, my disability specifically says cocaine dependency on it.
Yeah.
Mine specifically says that, so I'm out if that's true.
All of us are. And then also you have to register your guns. And this is a big problem for me. Granted, I know that the government knows that I have what guns I have. Because frankly, I've never sold a single one of them. I've never lost a single one of them.
Precious armory, as I always say. Your precious armory. We will need it.
They know what I have because, like I said, I've never lost anything in a tragic boating accident. As often as I joke about it, I've never sold anything. I've never given any of my guns to anybody. I've never had any of them taken from me. I have every single one that the government is tracking that I have. And there's a paper trail to prove it. If they ever come, that'll be a different story, because I might tell them that I just sold them and I didn't keep the bill of sale. That's the thing about it. If somebody ever comes trying to take your gun, just tell them that you don't have them and you sold them and you don't have a bill of sale. And the person that you sold them to, you checked their identification and did a brief background check on them. It seemed legit. They told you that they didn't have any reason they weren't allowed to have a gun. You made the sale.
I would never, provided that I had a gun, which I have yet to buy one, I would never let anybody, in this scenario, we'll use my katana. If they ever came to my door and was like, hand over your katana, you know what I'd say?
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, go fuck yourself. I'd say, you can pry it from my cold, dead hand.
You can try. As I always say about those types of hypothetical tough guy situations, somebody comes and says, "We're here to take your guns." You can try.
Yeah, you could do the Bane one where he says, "It would be very painful."
It would be extremely painful for you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what he should have said was, "For who?" and then Bane should have gone, "For you."
No, well, but then it sets him up.
How is that?
It tees him up. Because he goes, well, you're a big guy. No, I wasn't talking about me. That's an ellipses. That's what that's called.
I thought he meant like, for you, I'm a big guy. Like maybe to you, I'm a big guy. Tom Hardy
compared to who?
A big guy.
Yeah, but he looks like a big guy in the movie because of his stilts that he has to wear.
Oh yeah,
his stilettos.
For you.
But yeah, you have to. That's my problem is the registration, the license. I wouldn't do it anyways because who fucking cares? I have a constitutional right to own a gun. I can see you forcing me to get a license to drive a car, fly a plane, practice medicine,
sell a car.
I could see them saying, I don't like it. I don't necessarily agree with it. I can acknowledge the need for a license to practice law, medicine, any number of things that they want to try to make me get a license for. They can't force me to get a license for something that I have a constitutional right to. And so all of a sudden, this is where we get into like England, right? Do you have a license to broadcast on television, whatever, like all these licenses. I think they even have a license to watch television, frankly. But
what?
Yeah, well, you have to have like special licenses and shit and special permits and all this crazy stuff that they force you to do. That would be an issue, and that's an issue that I actually take up with ham radio and like FCC guidelines and stuff like that. Oh, all of a sudden you guys can force me to have a license to free speech, right? You have to have a permit to do some kind of protest, because sometimes you do. Sometimes you do have to have a permit to go protest without being broken up by the police. Which I think is unacceptable. I think everybody should be able to protest wherever they want. I think you should also be able to be hit by a car if you're protesting in the road and there's a sign that says do not walk in the road. Like the road is not for, the highway is not for pedestrians. If you're protesting on the highway and you get hit, sorry buddy, but that's on you. But I think otherwise, I think, yeah, absolutely, you should be able to protest wherever the fuck you want. I don't care, as long as it's not private property. And at that point, I think you should be able to be shot. If you're told to leave and you don't, I think you should be able to be shot. But you cannot force me to get a license for something that I have a constitutional right to, especially the Second Amendment, where the thing is only, 10 words long, the damn thing. And it's so, like, blatant and, like, in your face, the right of the people shall not be infringed, period. And every single gun law we have is honestly an infringement, but
yeah, you're infringing all over the place on this shit.
Like, I get the point, I get what you're trying to do, and it doesn't affect me. So if it did, I'd probably have a problem with it. If I was a criminal, I might be a little furious. Oh yeah, in the Jadogi says, I believe in the UK you have to pay a yearly tax if you own a TV.
We'll have to ask Little Lottie, our UK fan.
Yeah. So Little Lottie, this is proof to see whether or not you listened. Let us know. Send a DM or tag us or something saying if there's any truth to that. But I think I get why they would say if you are a felon, you can't own a gun. I think that should be amended to where if it was a crime that involved violence, I think maybe there's there's something there to that. I think I agree largely with a lot of the questions that they ask on the form when you buy a gun or whatever. Yeah.
I was reading Jay Coop's comment.
Go ahead and do the impression.
Oi, you got a license for that butter knife? Is that pretty good? Is that a pretty good?
That is a good one. That's a good Cockney.
Remember when I did it to the Wendy's and I sounded Australian? I kept saying, mate.
Mate?
Get back in the car, mate.
He doesn't have any money.
Yeah, can't you see these people? They can't even afford new furniture. Don't go around burning people's feet. They can't even afford new furniture.
Can't you see they don't have any money? But yeah, that's where I was driving at. Is like, I think I largely agree with their hearts are in the right place with a lot of this stuff, but you're just not gonna get it. They want us to like register at the point of sale after the enacting this bill. At the point of sale, that gun would be registered in your name, and all this shit would be like publicly available, from what I read. And they would. Where was I going with that?
I don't know.
And then
back. I know we only have 20 minutes, but I kind of want to double back and talk about the Disney stuff because I'm a firm believer that like Disney is the evil corporation. Like I have this like I regularly like let's be honest, I regularly put on the tinfoil hat. But lately, as of late, right? But I've been really giving a lot of thought to how like Disney is the evil corporation. Like you have to think of it in terms of like where they got their beginnings to where they are now. Like you've got a company that like their goal is to create customers for life, right? So you start out small, you appeal to the kids and you get the kids involved in it. You've got Disneyland, you've got all the Disney merchandise, stuff that kids, especially young girls, can't do without because they're all princesses, right? Which is like the worst thing to tell a girl growing up. You're a princess and Prince Charming will someday come and save you. Like this is where they got their start, right? Like that's how it began. And then it evolves into like all this like liberal crap or whatever, which who knows how they double back on that considering all their old racist cartoons, right? Like, what's that one, the South with the yippee, what is it, zippity doodah? Remember that? That was racist.
You're thinking of the Crows, the Jim Crows, right?
Yeah, from Dumbo. Yeah, those guys were hilarious, freaking crack. They were hilarious. But Disney is this corporation that like they've been creating customers since children, right? Since day one, this is what they've been doing. They create customers since they're children, and then they just peddle this like false hope, like worse than like religion, right? Even because you have to pay for it, first of all, and second of all, because it's like it's giving all these like horrible ideas that are just so wrong to teach children. Even now, it's gotten so much worse, dude. Like so much worse. Although I have to argue that like Pixar does a pretty good job. Like okay, I watched that Onward. You know, I loved Onward. I let me let me go ahead and
I was thinking of that joke that we were talking about when you were here about the what if toys had feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to tell that joke?
No, you do it.
All right. So the thing is, Pixar's movies in order are basically, you know, somebody says, well, what if toys had feelings? Then you get Toy Story. And then, well, what if cars had feelings? Then you get Cars. And then you get to, what was the next one? What if feelings had feelings? And then you get Inside Out. And then you get to what's the new one? Soul. What if black people had feelings? and then you get that movie. So
yeah,
that's all Pixar is.
I watched Onward is up for the Golden Globe or whatever, which it's also up there with a few other good ones. But my vote is for Onward. Like if you haven't watched Onward, watch Onward, dude. It's so good. It's like one of those movies that like the whole time you're appreciating the whole thing. Even Chris Pratt and what's Spider-Boy? What's that actor?
Tobey Maguire. Gonna cry?
not Bully Maguire.
I don't remember. I know who you're talking about. Little Spider-Man.
Yeah. But it's great. I loved it. Onward was great. Definitely watch it if you haven't had a chance to watch. Definitely watch it. It's a good one. Actually, I can't knock any of the Pixar films. Honestly, I can't. Like as far as Disney goes, everything else Disney like puts out aside from Pixar to me is just complete garbage. Like total like dude, like did you see this Cruella crap? Like are you
I didn't watch the trailer because I heard, you know what?
Like
there's an individual that I follow on here. I don't remember her name. On Twitter, I don't remember her name. I just know of her as like Mac and Cheese because her name is Mac and then her dog's name is Cheese. So like I know of them as Mac and Cheese because I'm like just as happy to look at the pictures of her puppy as any of her commentary on libertarianism, which I don't believe in libertarianism, but she's an anarcho-capitalist. So I respect a lot of her opinions on the matter. She had actually talked about how Cruella de Vil, Emma Stone, very talented actress. I think she's a very good actress in most of the things that she's in.
Wait, Emma Stone in the new one?
Yeah. Yep.
The old one was Glenn Close. See, I like the old one. Well, okay, we're talking reboot. The original Cruella de Vil was the best one.
So you know what's really funny to me is we're at a point where like Disney is rebooting their cartoons into live action movies, right? And I get it. They're just trying to make a quick buck, and they're just trying to recreate some of the shit. They don't have to do any. It's like so bereft of original ideas that they're just doing their old ideas again with Childish Gambino instead this time. But then like what a bigger disappointment than Aladdin. There isn't one. Like so bad that I didn't even watch
Ritchie
it.
Too. Oh man. I wanted to watch that, you know, Guy Ritchie.
Right.
I love Guy Ritchie. That's my guy. Like all of his movies, I've seen them all. I'm a huge fan. I love his directing style. And then Aladdin comes out, and it's all directed by Guy Ritchie, and I'm like,
I didn't even watch it.
What?
I couldn't. I didn't even know, frankly, that it was his. But I didn't hear anything good about it. Right. But now, what do we know about 101 Dalmatians and like the history of that movie? It was originally a cartoon. And then they made a live action movie of it with Glenn Close, like you're talking about. Now they're just doing another live action of the movie.
101 Dalmatian movies. There was 2 of them.
Oh man, I don't.
Yeah, and now they're doing one about Cruella de Vil as the good guy.
What?
That's what you didn't see that? It's called. That's why the Babylon Bee, they put one out of the alien from Aliens, and it's all Queen. Yeah, Queen.
Yeah, big ups to Babylon Bee there. But no, that's what pissed me off a little bit about it, because I'm like, wait, didn't we already have 101 Dalmatians, the movie, the live action movie, and now we're getting another one, like. Yeah. And then she was talking about this chick that I was talking about just a second ago. She's actually a fan of the show, believe it or not. She likes the Matt Squatch stuff more than she likes us, believe it. But whatever.
Yeah, of course. Nobody likes us.
Nobody comes here for us. They come here hoping that Matt Squatch will be on. That's why we don't tell you guys when Matt Squatch is on the show. So you have to sit through the whole thing, and then we only bring him in for the last 5 minutes of the show. But she was talking about how Emma Stone was doing some like stupid feminist stuff in it, like "I am woman, hear me roar" and all that shit.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. I didn't even bother with it. Here's something funny though that I did want to talk about it, and I didn't know if I was going to get a chance to talk about it, but it was this funny joke that I did the other day. Somebody had posted about Sleeping Beauty. They posted a picture of Sleeping Beauty, and then Prince Charming kissed her on the lips, and it says, "Here's how you know men are total degenerates. They'll walk through the woods, find a dead body, and kiss it," or whatever. And I said, and my response to that was, well, that was a kiss goodbye after all the other horrible things that he did to the body. And then it made me, like, I thought my joke could have gone so much further, but I didn't want to do it there because I knew we could do it here. Can you imagine, right? You're like Anakin in that meme that I shared. Like you're walking home and you come across a naked dead body, and he's like, "I shouldn't."
Yeah, your favorite meme.
Yeah. He says, "I shouldn't." But you do that, and then you do it against your own advisement, against your own better judgment. The Anakin on your shoulder. You do it. You go through, you do whatever horrible things you want to do to this body. And then at the end, because you're a gentleman, you kiss it on the lips because, it put up, it did all this nice stuff for you. It served as several holes for you for an undisclosed period of time. And at the end, you just kiss it on the lips because you're like, thank you for your service. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And you kiss it on the lips, and then it comes to life, and it's filled with all your whatever filth you left inside of it, and all the terrible things that you did. Maybe you put your fist inside it, one or two of the holes of many. It wakes up, and it's like confused because she was put to sleep by a witch, right? After touching a thimble or touching the needle on the.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she wakes up confused, and she's like, "Why does my jaw hurt? Why does my asshole hurt? Why are my feet sticky? Like every. Why are my nipples bitten off? Like all the gross stuff that you do to a dead naked body, and you have to explain to her like." You have to lie at that point, right? Because you're like, I just found you like this. I splashed some water on your face. But now you can't do that because of DNA evidence. You can't, because you gotta flee the scene. Otherwise, they're gonna know. They're gonna be like, oh, well, can we get a DNA swab off you? And you're like, shit. Because then they're gonna do the rape test. Yeah. And they're gonna find out it was you because you left all your fluids inside of her. You've got bite marks on your knuckles from where you fisted her throat. This is the untold story of Sleeping Beauty. And what's worse is there are other guys who came before you who were not as gentlemanly, and they did not kiss her to wake her up. So you're not only
that's like that Norm Macdonald joke when he says my wife's in a coma, and the doctor said, well, why don't you try, sometimes it works if you give oral, if you give oral or do oral sex with them, it'll work, or sometimes it'll wake them up. And so he comes back and he goes, Doc, she's choking.
I thought it was going to be a joke about I tried, but it was oozing some kind of creamy white, sticky, slimy fluid.
No, it was him.
And then the doctor's blushing. I know that now. I went a different direction with the joke.
No, I was gonna say in honor of the great Rush Limbaugh, we should do it. I have a quote here from him since we've been ranting about feminism ruining movies. Here's the quote from Rush Limbaugh. Feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream society.
That's true.
Isn't that true? When I read that, I thought, I feel like I've said something very similar to that before.
It sounded familiar as you were reading it. There was actually, speaking in the same vein of shitting on feminism and all that. I thought I had it. Oh, there it is. I was gonna say we could do a shot to the greatest of all time radio host.
Yeah, to Rush. That was today, man. That was today.
When a woman has scholarly inclinations, there is usually something wrong with her sexual organs. Do you know who said that?
No, who said that?
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Really?
That dude shit on women all the time.
Mister, I believe in nothing. We believe in nothing, Lebowski.
I am a nihilist. Yeah, that dude shit on women all the time. I really like one of his quotes that I really enjoy is while shitting on women is woman was God's second mistake. And you'll hear a lot of people argue that I've seen like some real like MGTOW guys and like real Meninist guys go this full thing where they're like, no, creation in general was a mistake. He fucked up with the animals or whatever. And no, it's man was the first mistake and woman was the second mistake. But he's more concerned with like pointing out that woman was God's second mistake, or that women were a mistake in general. But that's the funny thing about Friedrich Nietzsche is he was really anti-women because he couldn't get laid. He was trying to fuck his buddy's wife like his whole life, and he couldn't make it happen. And he couldn't get laid. Really smart guy.
They give him like acid. They gave him LSD before he died.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah, that's what happened. On his deathbed, he was dying of syphilis.
Yeah,
like losing his mind, and he was just like, "Give me LSD," and then he like slipped into some like tripped balls while he died. Yeah, wow. He had a wicked cool mustache too. Did you remember his mustache?
Yeah, of course. I modeled my own mustache after his mustache. But yeah, the. Rush Limbaugh, man. V, do you want to tell them why we haven't like called anybody out about talking shit about Rush?
Well, let's be honest. We can't get mad at people that are talking shit about Rush Limbaugh's death today because we pretty much danced on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's grave. We just shit all over Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so we're not gonna like be hypocrites. That's one thing that we will stand by is that we're not hypocrites. Even though everybody's like all these liberals right now are shitting all over, poor Rush Limbaugh. We can't really say anything because we totally talk shit about, Ruth Bader Ginsburg
and John McCain. How many times a day do I say something fucked up about John McCain publicly?
Yeah. So let it be known we're not hypocrites.
Yeah, we're gonna let it slide as much as we want to be like, oh, that's fucked up to talk about the dead like that because he's our dead, right? He's one of our tribe. We're not going to take a stand against liberals bashing Rush Limbaugh because we essentially fucked the corpse of Ruth Bader Ginsburg to ash. And so that's why we haven't said anything.
Yeah. Even
publicly.
Before she was dead, we were making jokes about her being
dead. No doubt. Even Fox News was. Everybody was talking about how Ruth Bader Ginsburg was dead. I'm still not completely certain that she is any more dead now than she was 2 years ago. I look back on that period of time and I wonder. Remember, she was in the hospital every 20 minutes. Like they would admit her, and just as soon as she got her discharge papers, like. They'd get in the car, and at that time, all of a sudden, she'd develop pancreatic cancer. Like,
as soon as she got out of the hospital, it's just, there goes my pancreas.
Like, why? I can't taste. I can't feel my tongue. Tongue cancer.
I bet she's like the librarian in hell right now. She's like when you go to hell and they're like, you got to know the Dewey Decimal System, and they take you to the library. There's Ruth Bader Ginsburg trying to teach you about the Dewey Decimal System.
And it's like it's such an outdated system. They're like, Ruth, we're timeless here in hell. We're outside the realm of time and space. We don't use that antiquated system of the Dewey Decimal System. And she said, in here you will use the Dewey Decimal System. Like with her finger in Satan's nose. Like, well, you will use the Dewey Decimal System down
He's
here.
got like hair on her lip. Like remember in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey when Bill, he's all Granny S. Preston. And it's in she's all give me a kiss, and she's got all this hair and like moles with like hair coming out of it, and her teeth are all.
That's what she looked like in life.
That's what, yeah, she looked like in hell.
You know what we do in order to finally, like, in order for us to like get out there and really like lay into these liberals who are talking shit about Rush Limbaugh, what we need to do is we need to apologize to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But do we do that?
Oh no, I have my pride.
Yeah. When's the last time you apologized, V?
I mean, I'm sure there's been a time. I don't know.
You know, as much shit as I talk about not apologizing to people, I'm like the first. I won't say I'm sorry, like, unless I really mean it, and it's so rare that I say I'm sorry. But I'll say my bad, which is like people see that as an I'm sorry, but it's really not. It's just like, oops.
No, you know what my favorite sorry is? My favorite sorry is when somebody asks for an apology and then you apologize to them about their behavior. You go, I'm sorry that you're this way.
I'm sorry that that you took offense to this.
Yeah, I'm sorry that all that built up and then you got mad about it. I'm sorry
you apologize. You apologize for you apologize for everything except for the thing that they want you to apologize. And like people are so petty about that, they'll sit there and wait for you to apologize for that one thing. Like, oh, I scuffed somebody's fucking shoe. And they're like, you owe me an apology for smudging my shoe. It's really not that big of a deal because it's not like I hang around with people who buy those fucking $1,200 Jordans. But, you know, like somebody's like, oh, come on, man, I just bought these shoes. You know, and they want you to apologize. They won't necessarily say it, but you're like, oh, whoops. You know, and then they're like, no, I'd like to I'd like to hear an apology. Like, I'd like to hear that you're at least sorry for smudging the shit out of my shoes.
And it's just like a believing thing. That's all it is.
Yeah, they just want some kind of payment because they know you're not going to pay for new shoes or to clean for the shoes, but they just want that apology. Then it becomes a petty thing. They need an apology for that thing. You're like, well, I'm sorry that you spent that much money on shoes, and then they're like,
I had a scenario happen to me that's similar to this. Maybe it was Jameis. No, I don't know who was with me. But I got out of my car and I opened my door like too fast. And so it hit the car next to me. And the guy was getting out of his car at the same time. And he goes, hey, man, what the fuck, dude? Like, what, dude? And I was like, oh, my bad, dude. You know, like, whatever. And he's like, dude, come on. And I was like, what, do you want to take my information down? And he goes, well, no. And I go, then what's the problem, dude? Like, what's the problem? He's like, just, be careful. And I was like, all right. I like totally left like a ding in his car too. Like, so like, whatever, dude. Like, I don't give a shit about your car. He could have scratched my car and I would have come back and been like, well, that's what happens. That's what happens. I wouldn't have been upset because I probably deserved that. But he didn't do shit except for take my shit. I nicked his car, and then was like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? What do you want me to call my insurance about your nick, dude? You want to have them pay?
Are you really going to call? Like, are you going to go down? Because I'm going to take a picture right now. And that's what you do. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to take a picture of the damage. And if all of a sudden it comes back that I fucking totaled your car, then that's going to be a problem. If it's anything more than this nick, then it's going to be an issue. Then I'm not paying for it. I'm being generous right now. And you know what's funny is most people don't even bother with insurance anymore because it's just stuff, man. Like, I'm sure if you fucking like rear-ended somebody, that would sometimes be an issue if you left like legitimate damage. But like cars are built in such a way now, and people are just so fucking poor and lazy that like you could hit somebody's car, like really like lay into it with your car door and leave a dent, and people would just be like, it's gonna be more of a hassle for me to call my insurance than it would be just for me to like blow this off entirely. So they just like give up. People are lazy. That's the benefit to modern society is people are just fucking lazy. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things now is
he realized all the steps that he would have to take for that stupid nick that he complained about.
You have to like point it out to them though. Sometimes you'd be like, oh man, I'm gonna have to hold on. Let me get out a sheet of paper and a pencil. Do you have a pencil? You know, or do you have a pen? And then they're like, most people don't carry a pen. Well, they're like, well, I got my phone. I'll just type it in and be like, I'm not comfortable leaving my information on the cloud like that. Let's get a sticky note. You got a sticky note, and you like put it all on them. Be like, I'll give you my information, but you got to fucking, you know, give me a piece of paper and I'll write it down. And then like at a certain point, and then you're going on and on about, well, you know, when you call, it's weird because I changed my name legally. So the name that's on here is not the name that you're going to get. I mean, you could write that down, but they're probably not going to recognize it because I had my name legally changed. I haven't gotten the new card yet. So you're going to have to tell them my old name. And then you like give your middle name and all this other shit. And then they're like, you know what? I'm fucking over it. I'm done. I got it to places to be. And that's the other thing is people are in such a rush to get to places that like nobody cares anymore. Like nobody wants to take the time to do things the right way. So it's just like if I can't do it right this second, and that's a problem that I have too, is like when you can order stuff online for probably cheaper than you would for like if you're at the mall or whatever. You're like, well, I could order this from Amazon and have it in 2 days, or I could buy it now and have it now. Or like video games now. Nobody buys physical video games except for like old heads like us. You know, you buy it because you want the physical copy in hand. You want to hold it. And then people are like, well, you could just download the thing off of Steam or off of whatever.
That's what that's huge, man.
I could order it, but I'd have to wait till I get home, and I'm going to wait for it to download, and I'm going to have to wait for this, I'm going to wait for that. If I just buy the disc, it's going to cut the time that I have to wait for the fucking game, and then you don't even end up playing the game for a week anyways, because, you know, fucking whatever. We're adults, and we have adult shit to do. What do you got to shill today, V? I know I said I was going to reclaim your time, but I'm not.
You're going to let me shill, dude?
Yeah. Please do. I'm going to ask politely that you shill.
All right, first of all, thanks for showing up, guys. As always, we appreciate you showing up. Our friends, you know, there's nothing greater than having your friends show up to your podcast and like listen to just two guys talk. Like let's be honest, that's what this is. It's just me and Tom getting on a phone call and talking to each other. Which we love that you guys show up and we appreciate it as always. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media sites that we do not support because they're not, you know, safe media and they're all trying to censor you or whatever. But go follow us on there anyways, right? Do that. Buy some of our merch. We've got a ton of cool shirts that are on there. The J. Coob shirt is my favorite right now. I haven't bought one. We're still doing the giveaway for the shower curtain. So if you take a screenshot of the 400 or 700 subscribers and send it to me, DM, I will buy you a shower curtain of the Bigfoot variety or whatever design you prefer from the You Had Me at Bigfoot merch. So don't forget to do that. The contest is still going on. Also, I'm always looking for cartoonists and, you know, artists and animators. You know, we have a few projects that we're working on that trying to get made. So, you know, if you know any artists or you have any friends that want to be in the film industry, send them my way. Again, Tom and I will talk to anybody. So if you hit us up on Twitter, we're definitely going to reply back and we're definitely going to talk to you. It's not like we're too good to talk to you or anything. So don't forget to do that. I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think they're talking in the chat. It's not the Sex Squatch episode that we did, the munge and all that shit. They're talking about the munge and the pink sock and all that.
Oh, the pink sock.
Here's what you do, and here's going to be my pitch, because I don't know if you guys do this or not. If you go to YouTube and you look at the descriptions, I do a funny description of the episode, and it's not really even a description of the episode, honestly. It's loosely, like, if you watch the episode you'll get the jokes that are said in it, but it loosely resembles what the episode is. And I know the episode, so if you go and you look at the descriptions all the way back to our very first episode, there's funny descriptions for every single episode. And same thing with the thumbnail or the pictures, like the episode pictures or whatever. There's a quote with each one that changes with every single one. It's an inside joke for the episode. So if you guys go back and look at all those, you'll get a chuckle maybe. But go and look in the descriptions, and we each have silly titles in the in the description. So it'll say, for instance, the episode that you guys are looking for, if you're trying to figure out which one it was, one of us is labeled the Cincinnati. Oh, I'm called Cincinnati Pink Sox pitcher, because it was like I made up fake sports titles for us, and I was the pitcher of the Cincinnati Pink Sox. That's the one that has the pink socks and the Mungers joke that we talked about.
You gotta guess. You gotta guess that day, right?
I don't remember. I remember we were talking about. You know what? It was the devil. You had me at the devil. I'm just giving it away. It's the
Oh,
you had me
yeah,
at the
it was
devil.
the devil.
Because we were talking
Yeah, it
about all
was.
the gross sex positions
Yeah.
that you can do with
And
the
how
devil.
banging the devil is actually cold. It's not hot.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that
but
was
anyways,
good.
I do encourage you guys, if you recall, anytime there's a new episode, we post the picture of the episode thumbnail, and then it says,
Yeah.
there's like some of the description is there. There's the same formula for every single episode. If you go back through, you'll probably get a chuckle at some of the descriptions. But yeah, go do that. That's going to be my pitch for this week. If you haven't already followed us, follow us on Twitter. You had me at You Had Me Podcast, and V is V_Weenus, and we're also on Instagram for now until they start instituting this anti-hate speech policy in the direct messages, which is funny. They said that they were going to suspend any accounts that use hate speech in the direct messages, as if we don't do hate speech directly in the original actual post.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we're all in all that bull crap. You Had Me Podcast, and V, you can find them on Twitter. Thank you guys for coming out. Had a blast. Had a fun time. I know we were supposed to have a topic today, but I had homework and we phoned it in. So we're doing that episode. We're doing that episode next week, and we're finishing up. And then we're going to start Mike's. I'm not going to tell you what the theme is or what the topic is.
Oh yeah, we've got a good promo in the works for that. I'm looking forward to that being done. So
yeah, I think you guys are going to get a kick out of it, because it's actually taking a great deal of effort, far more effort than it took for the Jake Hoop episodes, but the Jake Hoob episodes. So I think you guys will get a kick out of that, and so far it's passed the V sniff test, so he's approved of it. It's so far, so I don't have to go back and mess with it anymore. But yeah, that's what we're going to do in the coming weeks. We're going to start the Mike in Manitoba series. Mike, I do have to warn you, we have our super fan actually got with me last week and decided to contest your being the greatest fan, because he's actually been a fan of ours since 2007. So you may have to battle the super fan to the death in order to maintain your title as our biggest fan. Other than that, I got nothing for you, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.